So, hello and welcome to a view that you haven't seen in a very long time, but again, we're just working through some stuff. Normal service will soon resume. It seems like I always say the same thing and it never resumes, but it will. I'm better. So, for today's video, I have something very special because the good people at AK sent me the AK Quick Gen full set. This is the quick paint combo, and I think it's an amazing set of 80 quick gen, all of the range, plus 20 normal 3 gen to do a slap chop or to highlight your quick gen, which is a great idea and includes some brushes. This is the extent of the range, as you can see here, including some metallics quick gen, which I haven't used before. I've used the some of the speed paints metallics, but not this, and the normal acrylics plus the medium. So we have 80 paints to test. This is going to be a long time, at least for me. Probably not that long for you, but it's going to be a long time for me. So why don't you grab a cup of tea, sit down, relax, and I really hope you enjoy watching paint dry. For this video, I will be following the order of the paints showcased in the back of the box, and I am using a dry palette, no wet palette, because I don't want to introduce any sort of variable that I can't control. One thing to note is I really like the design of the droppers. This intensity rating here solves probably the biggest issue with contrast paints, which is not knowing how the paint is going to behave. This is fantastic to see, and of course I love their droppers. They are really easy to open with this shape, and again, I love them. I love that they also have a different color top for these paints. Makes them easy to identify. I'm using a dry palette and I am mixing them well, really well, because as you can see there is some pigment here. I want everything to be integrated. This is a magenta. The formulation feels thick, but it spreads really well, but it's thick. It feels thick. It's not liquidy. It's sticky, so to speak, if that makes any sense. But the paint spreads beautifully. As always, I am filming this voiceover while I am painting, so my impressions are just of what I see in this precise moment. But through the magic of editing, hopefully, you will be able to see a dried result of this paint somewhere in the screen. Let's just hope I am not too lazy to do that. But first impression, paint spreads really well, which is good. Just feels different to use. Very good undertone of very bright magenta. Let's see how dark this goes. Next color is Pink Flesh, and this is a low intensity product. Let's see if that changes how the paint feels in the brush. Well, they call this Pink Flesh, but this is just a very bright pink. That being said, it's a very beautiful pink. I quite like this. It's nice and intense with a good color. And yeah, this feels, it clearly feels like it has less pigment in them. It does feel easier to apply. And we have now Purple Flesh, another low intensity product. A nice light purple, which is welcome. I really like this kind of paints, sort of like Magus purpley. It's very useful to have a transparent, very light, warm purple. It's great. We move into the cold purples now with lavender. This is medium intensity. Yeah, this feels same as Luxion purple, vampiric purple, that sort of color. Very nice, nice color. Let's go about another high intensity. This is Necromancer purple. This on the palette looks like a variation of Deoxazine purple. Just feels like pure pigment Deoxazine purple. And yes, it is. It's a really nice pigment, very bright, very intense, has like a metallic shimmer almost on the palette. It's classic pigment used for inks, but you can also find it in other forms, but it's very popular for inks. For this reason, it's very intense, very staining. We move on to Demon Purple now. Another high intensity pigment. It just feels like a violet pigment. Yeah. Same thing as with the previous one, but warm in hue, which is amazing to see. I love this. These are my favorite of both Contrast and Express. You know, this paint is what makes the range work for me. So this is the yellow range. There are a lot of yellows in this range. This is surprising. Dirty yellow, bile yellow, warm orange, warm yellow, solar yellow, space yellow, plague yellow, and light yellow. So yeah, a lot of yellows, and this looks like Yanden yellow, which is the one I'm most interested but because that's my favorite of the Contrast range. All of the others look like opaque pigments, so their uses are more limited. You couldn't use an opaque pigment over other color, because especially if you want to keep the shadows really, really dark, because it's going to deposit itself, and this color you see here is the darkest these colors will go. So this is very dark, but these are very, very light. They still have their uses, but you have to think about that. So for me, the most interesting yellow is this, warm yellow, just out for the use, but I hope to be surprised here. Let's just see. And yeah, this is, I don't know, equivalent to something like the second batch of Contrast. It's good as a first layer to paint yellow, but you will need more shading for sure for this. But it's a great way to base coat yellow. This is a one coat yellow with a slight shadow. Very nice. This is vile yellow. Vile yellow looks very green. It's essentially just a chartreuse color, which is great to have. I really love this. Oh, I really love this paint. Bright green, almost fluorescent green, looks like Tesseract Glow. I really love that color. It's probably going to be one of my favorites from the range. Let's move on to warm orange. Again, medium intensity, which makes sense because it's quite opaque. So this is a yellowy orange, very opaque pigment. Will be great as a mid-step when painting on fire, but it lacks a little bit of contrast. But it's a great paint to have. And again, looks very intense in terms of saturation, which is great. Let's go with warm yellow, the one I am probably the most excited about. Just because if I can get a color that does Yanden yellow but better. Oh, no, it doesn't. Oh, this is interesting. It's really warm. It's way warmer than the Yanden. Okay, that's great. Surprised, but great. Really surprised. I wasn't expecting this color to come out of the bottle. To me, that's way more interesting than the warm orange. Let's go with solar yellow now. So this looks probably the closest to Yanden, but different. The pigment is more opaque, making it for a different look. It makes sense that they want to do their own mixes instead of just trying to copy. That's totally fair. Again, this is Yanden. My Yanden is almost empty. I need to buy more, but you can see what I mean by that. Next one is a space yellow. Another opaque yellow pigment. It will be interesting to see how much it differs from the first one, dirty yellow. Maybe slightly warmer. All of these opaque colors are going to work fantastic with an airbrush over a Zenithal. Let's move on to plague yellow. So just by the name, I mean, I get plague yellow, looks great, but this is what I would call dirty yellow. This is basically dirty yellow. Looks fantastic. I wouldn't do just one layer of this. I would add some shading because this is not going to provide a lot of contrast. And final yellow color, light yellow. Again, another opaque in quotation marks because yellow is never going to be opaque. Very cold yellow pigment. It has very little warmth. So far, all of the colors have been lovely to apply. Just, especially in the yellows, I would have loved to see a little bit more contrasty paints. We get onto the greens now. And this is the green range. You have jade green, a spectral green, a space green, vivid green, a space dark green, leaf green, forest green, rotten green, and orc flesh. Let's see how these behave. Jade green is a color that I am very excited about because I love this kind of greenish pigments. Oh, look at that. That's what I'm talking about. Vivid intensity, like incredibly staining power, and a deep, rich shadow. Oh, I love this paint. The next one is a spectral green, which is a low intensity and looks like an opaque pigment. By the name, I am expecting something ghosty. Yeah, it's like a less green version of Weight Watcher green, the glaze, the old glaze from GW. And I think there is a new GW color like this, like I can't remember it. But yeah, really nice. We move on to a space green high intensity. By the color, I would expect like a Dark Angels green sort of color. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, sort of, yeah, that works. Beautiful color, nice tinting power and deep shadow. This looks great, probably more akin to salamanders, but there is a dark space green, so I'm guessing. Now let's see if I am right. Oh no, this is vivid green. And I think I'm going to like this color because it looks very dark and I'm sure it has a beautiful, intense undertone. Oh, this is beautiful. Another one to my favorite list for this range. Look at that. That is great. Look at how much contrast we get. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. So we get to a space dark green. Let's see if this is the space dark greeny. We will see. Oh, that is nice. Yeah, that's definitely Dark Angels. Green. I prefer my Dark Angels to have a little bit more saturation, but I know I'm not necessarily in the majority here. Yeah, this looks very much like Dark Angels green. This is a good color. Let's go now into Leaf Green, another of very dark color on the bottle. I have a good feeling about this. Each time I see a very dark color on the bottle, it means we are in for a good time. Oh yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, I like that. That is a great color. This is Forest Green, which looks a bit more opaque than what I like. This is one of those colors that the pigment is opaque and you can tell in the shadow. Still, it's going to leave a decent amount of contrast, but you can tell it's an opaque pigment. But I kind of like this color, but it's not one of my favorites. Next one is Rotten Green. This looks like another transparent pigment, just a lighter version. That's a lighter transparent pigment. Yeah, you can see, look at that. I love that. This one I love. This one is beautiful. Nice. Also, I love yellowy greens, so I guess I am biased. So for the last of the green colors, we have Orc Flesh. And this is a bit more opaque. It's basically a darker version of the previous color. A nice intense green with beautiful undertone. It's nice, I like that. Very 90s orcs, like that kind of orc flesh. I quite like that. This is the blue and turquoise range. We have ice blue, night blue, power blue, ultramarine blue, a spectral blue, turquoise blue, and turquoise green. Like a very small blue range, which is weird, but okay. And 3 turquoise colors, which is like standard. That's nice. Ice blue is next. Low intensity is a great color. Essentially looks like a thinner version of Talazar blue, which is a great pigment and a great color to have. Nice icy blue color with deep contrast. Quite nice, very rich. We move now into night blue high intensity. I am expecting a Night Lord's kind of blue. I want a lot of color and a lot of saturation, so the highlights don't look washed out. And yeah, I'm not disappointed. Oh, what a beautiful color. We move on to Power Blue, high intensity. Really powerful and punchy, beautiful intensity pigment, a nice contrast. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is nice. By the way, there will be obviously a swatch. It will be linked in the description. But watch the video first. Let's do ultramarine blue now. I am very curious about this color because making a color that looks like ultramarine armor is very difficult. So let's see what they've done with this. Yeah, a purplish blue. It's a good color. Doesn't necessarily look like ultramarine armor painted by GW, but it's definitely an ultramarine blue color. We move on to the teals now with a spectral blue. We had a spectral green, and now we have a spectral blue. So that no matter which flavor of ghost you like, either blue or green, you have paint for it. This looks like a thermatic blue. Now we have the 2 turquoise colors, turquoise green and turquoise blue. I am expecting Terdon turquoise and Achillean green. We will see. Yeah, this is Terdon turquoise, which is great, because you really don't need any 2 more colors. This is fantastic. If you need more variation, there is plenty in other ranges. And I expect I expect a Killian green here, and I think I won't be disappointed. Nice. Set two standard turquoise colors, and after we are done with the turquoise, we move into the things I am most interested about, which is the reds. This is the extent of the red, orange, and flesh color range. Everything here looks way too orange or way too red to be a flesh color, but we will see. We have crimson red, dwarf flesh, orange, space red, reddish orange, vivid flesh, infernal red, and night blood. Let's start with crimson red, high intensity. This looks on the palette like flesh teals red, which has made me really excited. And yeah, this is exactly what I expected. We will see how this dries, because reds have the tendency to dry very different than how they look wet, but for the time being, I really like. Let's move into the dwarf flesh. I expect this to be the standard flesh color, but looks really orange. I'm not sure about that, but we will see. Oh my, this is flesh color? What the hell? Yeah, this is dwarf flesh. This is orange. Oh my god, this is so orange. Why is it so orange? Okay, this is just orange. And this looks orange. This is nice orange. Very standard orange pigment, but has a speck of yellow in it to make it more intense. This is what I expect from a paint that's called orange. Let's move on to space red, another of the space colors. I wasn't expecting this. It's a different red. It has a pinkish pinkish undertone because it's white, obviously, but it's not tinted towards yellow, which is typical, and it's very opaque. You can see how little contrast we get. Let's move on to reddish orange, another high intensity, and another one that is not going to be too dark. Okay, this is more what I think when I think Blood Angels red, probably because I've been conditioned by GW for Blood Angels to have a yellowy highlight, so this makes more sense to me. It's still not a ton of contrast, and this is essentially probably quite close to the color of the original Blood Angels red from GW back in the day from Citadel. It's a great color to have. We have now Vivid Flesh, another flesh color that looks really saturated, like weirdly saturated. Like, yeah, look at that. This is British tourist in Spain flesh tone. Like, wow, this is an intense color. Like, I get it, but wow. To me, this is not a good, healthy flesh tone. Again, I'm still... What are the flesh tones? Oh, there is a color I see later on that is called Human Flesh. So that might be the answer. So now the two colors I am most interested about, Infernal Red and Night Blood. And we need to see this dry, but so far very close to the Flesh Tears Red equivalent we did before. We will see once it dries. Right now it just feels very similar, maybe a little bit lighter. Yeah, this is lighter for sure. This is probably the color I would use if I were to paint Blood Angels Red, because this looks like a really good Blood Angels Red. This is Night Blood, probably the one I feel more curious about, because one thing I am lacking from the contrast and the express is a really dark red. Yeah, I love this paint. This is great. Thank you. Yeah, this is fantastic. Like a World Beaters red, that sort of stuff. So now we move on to the grays, at least paints that are called gray. We have light gray shadow, winter gray, bluish gray, white shadow, strong gray, space gray, and dirty gray. Very interested about this one. This is light gray shadow, low intensity, purplish hue. Love to see that. I love grays that have something extra. Ooh, I like this a lot. Yeah, I have another of my favorites now for the range, for sure. We have gray shadow now. Again, looks like a purplish tone. I love to see that. There is enough purplish grays out there, and it's my favorite tone for gray. It looks like a quick gem version of Tenebrous Gray, which is one of my favorite paints ever made. And yeah, this is, oh yeah, I'm going to enjoy using this. We jump a lot into winter gray. This looks like a light Space Wolves gray. We have a space gray, which is what I would think could be designed to be a Space Wolves gray paint, but this also looks really good if you want a lighter Space Wolf color. Let's move on to bluish gray, medium intensity. Oh, this is a nice color. And there isn't an equivalent in Citadel that I can think of, and for sure there isn't one in Express, which means, yeah, this color has a lot of uses for me. We get into white shadow, so the white paint of the range. This looks very neutral, which is good. This feels way more watery than some of the other paints, probably because it's so light in pigment, but so far looks like a pretty decent white contrast paint. It looks like a dry satin, which is also something that I quite like. This is a strong gray, and it's another blue gray. There are a lot of blue grays. This is not a color that I personally like a faded jean kind of look. It's just not a color that I tend to go for. We have a space gray. Well, looks quite thin. I wasn't expecting this thin, but it gets a lot of contrast. It's just that it's lacking probably a little bit of color into the surfaces. Depending on how you like your Space Wolves, you'll probably find a better match in other color. And the final gray is dirty gray, another low intensity paint. I wasn't expecting this color for sure. And they call this low intensity, but I'm not sure I agree with that. It's a great paint. I wish that we had more of these things and less blue grays. Now there is quite a weird spacing into the range because we have two browns now, then we jump into black, and then we have more browns. So I'm going to just start with the first brown. It's brown black. I can see the potential of this. Just thin down, you can get a great desaturated brown, like leather. Yeah, very much a fan of this color. This one is called dark leather. I'm expecting Cygor brown here. Yeah, and this is Cygor brown, just the same paint. And it feels as sticky and as dense as Cygor brown, which is not necessarily bad. Of all of the paints I've tested, this is the hardest one to apply. It just feels so sticky. I'm worried I haven't mixed this thoroughly, so I'm going to try another time. It still feels thick. Yeah, this is so thick, man. Like so thick, it feels like jello. So much pigment in this. So thick. Yeah, it's just this thick. It's just this thick. I like the color. You will probably have to thin this down a little bit because, oh my god, this is too much. I'm going to use the first swatch I did. Black. Another paint that feels quite thick. Just not as thick as the previous one, but quite thick. This is better than the dark leather, but it's still thick, goopy. We move into soft black. This immediately feels way easier to use. And I'm guessing as the previous one, this is also a neutral black, but it's probably going to look gray once we apply this. Let's move on to blue black. It's high intensity, but it's definitely not as thick. And yeah, this is very cold black. Yeah, this is not like Black Temper at all. And not one I think I've seen before. This looks great. And finally, to end the blacks, night black, another high intensity pigment. Another one that feels quite lighter than the black and the dark leather in the bottle. Okay, gold for sure, but with a purple undertone. Probably my favorite black of them all. Leather. Very simple name, with a very simple promise. This is a nice brown. Yeah, love this paint. Brown seems simple, but they aren't. Browns are complicated, and this is beautiful tone. Orange brown. Really nice color. Oh, love to see that. That, I don't know if it's Indian yellow undertone, sort of a snake bite leather kind of thing. Oh, fantastic. Next in line is Putrid White, low intensity. I wouldn't call this Putrid White if I were to put the name myself, but yeah, I get what they were going for. A nice color, nice hue. Let's get with Reddish Flesh, which looks very pink. I guess you can call this a skin color, flesh color. Yeah, I can see that. It's reddish, sort of vaguely flesh tone color. This would be amazing to add tones to your flesh. Next one is human flesh. Not sure I like that name, if I'm honest. I don't think there is a well thought out name. Okay, so this is certainly a flesh tone. This is what I was expecting when I did the dwarf flesh. Yeah, this is a good standard Caucasian flesh tone. You can thin it more if you want a lighter flesh tone, but this serves like a good baseline flesh tone. We have bone brown. Bone colors in contrast range are very important. Quite a dark bone color, which is good because this looks darker than Citadel and Express, which gives more options. More options are more better. Next one is camel brown. Oh, this is a very yellowy brown. Quite thick as well. We are back into the thick consistency territory, but not a thick consistency that is difficult to apply, although I imagine applying this over very large flat surfaces to be quite challenging. The next one is light leather. So we already had leather. This is light leather. This is marked as a medium intensity, but it feels thicker than other medium intensities. I'm not sure what their process for naming the intensity of the paint was, but some of the consistencies of the paint have been a little bit too fluctuating. Another one I am excited about, dark flesh. This is dark flesh tone. Another medium intensity. And yeah, this applies better than the last one. And yeah, this is a nice dark flesh tone color. Yeah, I like that. This is decent. That's nice. Now we have wood. Just wood. Just wood. And yeah, this is essentially just wildwood. It's a good choice. It's just a good brown. You can also use this for a brown flesh tone if you want more variation. Now we have desert yellow. So far the only ochre. Oh, this is a weird color. This is quite green. This is called desert yellow, but it's very green. Not a bad color, just unexpectedly green. And before we move into the metallics, the last one, vampire flesh, which it's a nice flesh tone. Just a desaturated version of the reddish flesh. Quite kind of like that. This looks great. Yeah, I like that. This is a good color. Now we move into something that I have very little experience with. Metallic. And let's start with gold. I've used very few contrast metallic paints. I've used 2 or 3 of the speed paint metallics. I wasn't impressed, not because they are bad paints, just because this is not a concept that I necessarily agree with. I don't think metallic contrast speed paints look good, but if you think they do, more power to you, I guess. I don't know, I will have to see how this dries, but I see very little value compared to just, doing a gold base coat and apply a wash over it, which will give you more contrast and more metallic look, but that's just me probably being old. This is copper. These don't have intensity ratings, these are just metallic. I think for the nature of this paint, these have to be mica based, which means that the particle size is going to be quite chunky. You can see them glittering there. I don't know, again, this is not my thing. Next one is steel, dark steel. I know, it's just, you know what they feel like? All of this speed paints and quick paint metallics. To me, I know probably going to get flamed in the comments, but if you really like this, please don't get offended, but they look like poorly done metallics. They feel like metallics that are not well formulated. We have old gold. Well, I quite like this more than the gold, just to say something positive. This is much better gold color. I will probably just skip the gold and get the old gold. If you want a contrast metallic paint, I think this would be my go-to. This is bronze, which I like the hue of the bronze paint in there. I'm not a fan of the overall concept, but I think it's a nice hue for bronze. Well, it's a very elusive color, and I think this is nice. And finally, cold steel. Okay, this feels thicker. Maybe it's not well mixed. I had a lot of issues mixing this paint. I think it looks fully mixed, but it just feels like a normal metallic paint, if I'm honest. There is nothing about this paint that feels like the other ones. And now we move on to the military colors. AK being a military mobile brand, it makes sense that they decided to make this. We have German grey, field grey, dark green, US olive uniform, ochre green, British uniform, Russian uniform, Russian blue, and desert sand. Before we start with this section, just note that I am by no means an expert in this color, so I will have nothing of value to say in terms of accuracy. This is a really dark gray color. It looks good. This is probably my favorite black. Yeah, I love this color a lot. But yeah, would probably be my favorite black of the whole range. Field gray, another German color. And yeah, this is the German paint for World War II. It looks good to me. I like that. It looks rather good. Nice choice. Dark green. And it's a beautiful green. This is a green I would use a lot. This could be great for Imperial Guard. It's nice green. US olive uniform. It's a nice olive drab color. Really good. No idea if it's accurate, but it looks fantastic. So I would be happy to use that. It's a great paint. I'm not going to judge it in terms of the other colors, but just in terms of how they look. Now we got into the ochre green. This ochre green looks very opaque, which is not something I really enjoy. Again, yeah, it has a lot of powerful tinting, so it has some kind of tinting yellow underneath, but the shadow is opaque. Now we have British uniform. Again, opaque shadow with an undertone that is very tinting, so the same strategy as the last color. And again, not sure if I like how this color was designed. Russian uniform. This should be a green color. I'll probably thin this down a smidge if you plan to use this for your armies. But it's a great color, very good color for Cadians. I would love to use that for Cadians. Now we have Russian blue. A very beautiful Prussian blue. Very thick. It's one of those thick boys. I wish they maintained the intensity rating in this, because it just feels like an inconsistency that some bits of the range, even if it's like 12 colors, don't have it. This is desert sand. And again, very opaque. It's the same thing. All of the ochres they've done for the military range. I love the undertone, but the shadow is very opaque. So not necessarily what I would have done, but the color is nice. It's just, I don't know, not my cup of tea in terms of how they were designed, all of the ochres in the range. And this is the full Quick Gen range. 79 paints, plus a medium. And it's a weird range. I mean, there is some things that I'm really missing and some things that are way too much of. So let's start with the obvious. We have so many yellows, and yes, they are all slightly different, but come on, between these two, you could easily skip one. Same between these two, slightly different, but they are basically the same thing. And then we have colors like this, which is, yes, it's a very light yellow, but I can't really see a reason for it. My guess is that, as these things usually are, they started from a target number. Usually that comes with how your displays for the shops are designed. So they essentially had to hit a mark of 80 paints, so they can probably reuse the stands or it fits with the other stands. And I kind of feel like some of the colors are a little bit redundant. So this is for me a range that you don't really want the full range. Not really. I mean, you shouldn't buy the full range of anything. It's better to just buy what you like from different ranges and build yourself a beautiful set. One thing I really like about this range is that they have the intensities of each different paint labeled in the dropper. That is great, so you know what to expect. This is a low intensity, medium and high intensity. That being said, I found some inconsistencies even in this system. That's my only critique. They spread really well. They are fantastic to use. I haven't seen any reactivation or any problems. I will do more testing in a separate video where I just paint a miniature using them. It will be the next heavy contrast video, where I want to use some of the colors to see if I can get a nice result with them. I now have more tools to play with, which means that I'm a happy boy, and I hope you are too. And thanks to my lovely patrons to keep supporting me. You can see their names scrolling in the screen right now. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this, and surely wouldn't be able to put through the suffering of moving to the new studio. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye. Oh, remember, you have the full swatch photographed in high quality linked in the description. Hope that is useful for you, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.